We're good.
Recording now.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I'm really thrilled, tonight to introduce you to Dyson Williams. As most everybody on this call knows, Dyson is an elite world-class talent, really been recognized at every level of the competitive lacrosse, from collegiate ranks right up to the professional box and even the field leagues. During his tenure at Duke University, Dyson was a foundational leader, serving as a two-time captain. He was recognized nationally as an All-American and earned all ACC honors, all while maintaining excellence in the classroom by making the ACC Academic Honor Roll. Dyson also earned international achievements with the Team Canada and proudly represented his country on the world stage, contributing to Team Canada's success. He's been an he's been a key member of the team that secured the silver medal at the 2023 World Men's Field Lacrosse Championship and earned a gold medal as part of the 2025 Super Sixes tournament team. Dyson's career has further extended into the professional excellence of the NLL and PLL. Dyson quickly established himself as a dominant professional force. In the National Lacrosse League, he was the first overall draft pick in 2023. He also went on to be named the Rookie of the Year for the 2024-2025 season with the Firewolves. In the Premier Lacrosse League with the Utah Archers, he was the 16th overall draft pick in the 2024 and currently holds the league's leading goal per touch rate for the 2025 season. I want to go ahead and just share really quickly a quick video before we get started. Scott, let me know if everybody can see my screen.
Yeah, you're good.
Good? Okay.
I think you're looking at your rookie of the year. 3 seconds to shoot. Behind the back goal! Dyson Williams wins it in overtime. Honoring his late brother Tucker tonight. Dyson, the touch, and he scores. That one's for you, Tucker. For five, here's Walker. Williams scores! There's number one for the number one pick.
All right. Can you hear me okay? Can you guys hear anything else right now?
No, just you.
Just me? Okay, great. All right. So, with that being said, I want to welcome Dyson Williams. Thank you, Dyson.
Thanks for that intro, Corey. Appreciate it. It's
Yeah.
a long intro. I'll take it though. I'll take it. But yeah, I'm very excited to be here. I was just saying to Scott and Corey before, had this chat with Tony Addy back in March, and he mentioned the possibility of being able to talk to the boys, and there's no hesitation. I was willing to do it right away. I know what it means to have dreams and aspirations of playing college lacrosse, and you guys are at that prime age where you can make that decision on whether you want it, or you don't. So being able to come and talk to you guys kind of about my journey, my path, the things I've learned over my career is special to me, and means a lot. So throughout our talk tonight, I want this to be more of a conversation, not really a presentation. So if you guys ever have any questions, either use the raise hand on Zoom, or you can just interrupt me. Make it pretty light and easy, and we'll make it a good discussion for from here on out. But yeah, looking forward to it, and I'm just gonna share my screen now, and we'll get going. Um, are you guys able to see my screen? Awesome. All
Yep.
right. So, um, as I was saying today, we'll go through just who I am, just because you guys can get to know me a little more on and off the field. Go through different stages in my lacrosse journey and kind of the different skills I gained and lessons I learned over the course of those different stages. Then we'll talk about kind of how lacrosse shaped me into who I am today, and then we'll have time at the end for questions as well. But once again, please feel free to interrupt or ask questions at all during the talk. So personal background for me growing up, lacrosse was a part of my life ever since I was 1 week old, or actually since I was born. But my first ever lacrosse game I went to, I was actually a week old. My dad, he played pro lacrosse for 17 years, and it was year three that he was in the league that I was born. And literally a week after, I came to the world, I was watching lacrosse. So to say that lacrosse is in my blood is an understatement. So, pretty cool upbringing that way. And for me personally, I'm just a, very, family oriented person. I want to, mention that today. Kind of give a background on my family before I talk about myself. I don't personally love talking about myself, so I want to talk about my family before I do that. As I said, my dad, so he's Sean Williams. He played pro for 17 years in the NLL, played a couple years in the MLL, which obviously now is the PLL, um, and won, gold medals for Team Canada, won pro championships. And, I was fortunate enough to be coached by him growing up through my childhood and learn a lot from him. He's now in the Hall of Fame as a player for the NLL and is now the head coach and GM of the Las Vegas Desert Dogs in the NLL. So now I get to play against him, which is pretty cool. And this picture here is actually before a game last year, our first time ever playing against each other, and Vegas did win in overtime. So unfortunately, I'm down 1-0 to him all time, but we'll get redemption this year for sure.
Hey Dyson, is anybody seeing a glitch in the slides? It looks like it's static. Is anybody else seeing that besides me?
Yeah, I see it too. It's on the first slide and then it like glitches over to the third one.
You might want to put it into prerization mode, Dyson, because it's not advancing.
Okay, I did put it in
Oh,
presentation.
there we go. Okay, now we got it.
There. Yep.
Does this work?
Oh, it has advanced. We now see the picture of you and your family.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So, uh, my sister, she plays lacrosse as well, and she is a member of Team Canada. She actually was just in Hong Kong last year, representing the U20 women's team, and she represented the first women's box team last year at the Worlds, and then also was a part of the women's sixes team this summer in Chengdu, China. So she's been all over the map playing lacrosse. And she played collegiately at University of Pittsburgh and then the University at Albany, where she just graduated last year. So very cool lacrosse roots in our family. My mom did not play lacrosse, but she is now a full-time lacrosse mom and has been for years. And she's fully embraced that, which is awesome. And then want to just mention my brother Tucker. Unfortunately, he passed away at the age of 8 from Burkitt's lymphoma. And this picture is actually before the game that I got to play against my dad. But it's called Tucker Out Lymphoma Night, and has now been a game that has been played for the last 11 years in the league. And to be a part of that in my rookie year was really special. And now my dad's team in Vegas, and then Buffalo, they put on a Tucker lymphoma game every year. So he was, full of life and an amazing lacrosse player. And is a huge reason why I am where I am today, with trying to honor his legacy and what he's done for the lacrosse community, just trying to embrace who he was and show the world why Tucker was so special. And I'll touch on kind of that more in the stages of my lacrosse journey as well, and kind of how Tucker has influenced my path with lacrosse. A little different upbringing than you guys, obviously being in North Carolina, growing up in Canada, a lot of snow, a lot of cold weather. So for us, it wasn't, field lacrosse all year round. A lot of it was box lacrosse. And I started playing box lacrosse when I was 3 years old. Didn't start playing field till I was 9. So, whole different kind of upbringing that way. But for me, I think being a kid playing lacrosse, it was an easy transition learning field, just because it's similar enough where the sticks in your hand, you can make plays and get the job done. But definitely looking back at it, would have been cool to start field a little bit earlier. And now there are kids here that start playing field lacrosse at younger ages, but box is probably still a bit bigger of a game still. And then, yeah, as I touched on, kind of started watching lacrosse, right away and playing when I was 3. But, being able to watch my dad play through his, Hall of Fame career, yeah, definitely, gave me some insights on how to be a pro and helped, shape that dream that I had. And obviously now lucky enough to be able to say that I am living that dream of, being a pro and kind of reaching the highest level. So that's kind of a brief background on me and what I'm all about. And we can move on here. So my lacrosse journey, I'll touch on these stages here, but
Dyson,
these are
the slide,
Yeah.
the slide
same
hasn't advanced.
thing.
Yeah, we'll just give you a heads up. There we go.
Perfect.
Whatever
Yep.
you're doing now, we're seeing it. Keep going.
Yep.
Same
There
thing.
we go.
Perfect.
Perfect. Whoop. We're on it. We'll tell you when you just
Yeah.
give us a heads up when you want to advance, and we'll tell you if we're seeing it or not.
Perfect. Okay. So here's different stages of my career. So started playing for the Whippy Warriors back in my minor days. Then I was lucky enough to go to the Hill Academy, coached by Brody Merrill, who's obviously regarded as one of the best defenders of all time, if not the best defender of all time in the game. So that was at the Hill in Ontario, Canada. Then that took me to Duke University to play in the NCAA. Then Team Canada, the Firewolves in the NLL, and the Utah Archers of the PLL. All right, I just hit the next slide. Did that show up?
Not yet.
Okay, so I'm just gonna have to go in and out every time. That's fine. So youth lacrosse. I think growing up, one thing I know I love lacrosse, but one thing I think about a lot is just how I constantly had the stick in my hand. Whether I was playing backyard lax with my friends, playing mini sticks in the living room, playing pool lax. I was constantly, soaking in the game. I was constantly learning by watching, whether it was my dad's games or other games. I'd watch highlights on YouTube and try to mimic, what some of the coolest highlights, trick shots that I saw on YouTube, and try to do that in the backyard on my own time. And I think the player I am today, being creative, a lot of that is due to the backyard and just always constantly kind of being hungry to learn more about the game. And this picture actually is pretty cool. This is me and Brett Dobson. I'm sure most of you guys know who Brett Dobson is. He's two-time championship game MVP in the PLL, and he's my teammate on the Utah Archers. And that was the two of us when we were 9 years old. So pretty cool, full circle that the two of us are running together here and now still playing together. 16 years later. So pretty special. Another thing too,
Dyson, I have a real quick question for you.
absolutely.
And maybe maybe some others do, or maybe I just don't know. What is pool stick? Like, is that a certain game, or is that something that you could expand on?
Yeah, so pool axe, pretty much just kind of invented it with my buddies, but
Uh-huh.
in our backyard in the summertime, in my buddies' backyards, we'd put 2 nets up, one on each end of the pool, and you'd stand outside of the pool and basically get these foam balls and you'd skip them, like you'd shoot, and you can either skip them across the pool or you can shoot, just sling it through the air. But we would just rip the ball for hours at each other, kind of, and hop in the pool whenever you want, and it's just fun. And it was like thinking back, pretty much all the time is hanging out with my friends. It was we were doing something revolving around sports for sure, but 95% of the time was lacrosse. So
Yeah.
that was kind of just a fun game we made and played it for years. So yeah, haven't played in a while, so need to bring that back next summer.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That's
Yeah,
great.
of course. North Carolina weather, the boys can can definitely get Pulex going for the majority of the year.
Certainly.
Um, and then for me too, it was very important. I think for you guys as well. You're still at the age where I would still play as many sports as you can. Um, you know, being lacrosse being a sport that is it involves so many different skill sets from other sports. You're at an advantage, learning in other sports and playing. So I grew up uh, obviously playing lacrosse, but I also played hockey. I played basketball competitively, and then in school, I played sports like volleyball, soccer, any other additional sports just to stay active and keep playing from a young age. And I think with, like I said, the way lacrosse is, you got the speed of hockey and the stick skills, the hands like hockey. Then you got the physicality of hockey, you got the physicality of football, field lacrosse, especially. You got the scheme of soccer and kind of that box lacrosse. You have the scheme of basketball, a lot of pick and roll action. The list goes on with kind of where nuances of each sport kind of add to it. So advice this way would be like continue to play as many sports as you can, especially through high school. You have time once if lacrosse is your path and you want to play lacrosse in college and past college, there's tons of time to just play lacrosse. So, I would say, keep playing other sports and keep evolving, and it only can help you even more, evolve your lacrosse skill and, make you a better player on the field. All right. Next slide here. So jumping up to high school, this is kind of where I'd say this is obviously where we can relate a lot to you guys now. Once I stepped foot at the hill, I thought it was time for me. I wanted to separate myself from the pack and really create this path. I had these dreams of, making it to the pro levels, representing myself, on the national stage, playing for, Team Canada. And I knew to do that, like the high school years are the most important to get that going. It's who you are at the start of high school is a lot different than who you are when you graduate. And I think where I was, so at the start of high school, I was, probably, I want to say 5'8", 5'9", and about 135, 140. So a lot smaller than I am now. Through my time in high school, I ended up gaining probably around 45 to 50 pounds, and grew a few inches. So I think it's important to think about in the journey, like where you are at the start and where you are at the end can really, differentiate with different people, different players. So everyone's kind of their own person that way, where if you're, very big when you're in grade 9, or you might not grow as much as other guys and change as much, but whoever you are, kind of write your own path that way and just make sure that, whatever kind of hurdles you have to go through, whether it is kind of late growth spurts, you come out stronger through it and create your own path, no matter what, it presents itself. I think for me, high school, it was ninth grade when I lost my brother. So that was, toughest thing I've ever had to go through my life. I think that was a point in time where, for me, the biggest, hurdle and like time adversity I've ever had to face in my life. Do I want to continue playing lacrosse? Do I want to call it quits and, pack up my things, or do I honor him and the sport that he loved and the sport that my family loves? I think at that point, it was the decision I made was to, come out even stronger and, have a piece of Tucker with me. And every time I stepped on the field, and I'm very, happy to still be wearing the same number that he wore, 51, and that my dad wore and that my sister wears. And, being able to honor him, there's nothing I can, change with, where he is today. So it's about honoring him, every time I, carry my stick and every time I walk on the street, anything I'm doing in my day-to-day life, representing him. So I'm, very grateful that with the support of my family and, friends and the lacrosse community, I, had the, drive to do that, because it was at an age where, I could have gone a different direction and kind of, gave that up and I didn't. So I'm very, fortunate for that. skills gained in high school at the Hill. Number one was time management. That was the first time where, you guys know it, you got your heavy class load and you have to study, do your homework, do your tests, everything. You're playing all these sports. You start, branching out in your social life, and you have all these kind of moving parts going on in your life. And once I first got to the Hill Academy, I was Brody really helped set us up to manage our time effectively, and that set me up for success once I got to Duke, because it does not get easier as you get older. I'm jealous of kids that are still in fourth grade that don't have a care in the world, that you don't have any of that day-to-day kind of stress and things going on. So it's very important, in high school to start learning that and trying to manage your time effectively. Setting schedules and making sure that you're getting everything done. But at the same time, I think that the balance is very important. This isn't me saying that, you should be getting 1,000 shots in at night and, not hanging out with your friends and, building those relationships. I think it's very important that you find a way to do everything. It's doable to get everything done. It's just managing your time effectively and not kind of pushing things to the side. Yeah. Next was setting realistic goals and knowing thyself. So know thyself. We in high school I had to read a book on the New Zealand All Blacks, who are like known as the best rugby team of all time around the world, and most successful sports team, honestly, in the world. And they follow, a bunch of, base principles as a team, and know thyself is one of them. And basically what that means is knowing who you are. And that includes everything positive and negative, and, strengths, weaknesses, and being able to understand what you need as a person, and also what you can provide and what you can work on. So I think for you guys, setting your goals on where you want to be in your lacrosse career, it's important to obviously dream big, but also be realistic with where you're at, and with your what you want your timeline to look like, and whether it's academically, athletically, where you can see yourself. If you set your goals too high, then and you don't reach it, then you kind of don't want to feel that like, oh, I didn't reach it. I'm not saying don't dream and don't have that highest level as a long-term goal, but incrementally, I think it's important. For me, I set smaller goals each time, and I didn't just say right off the bat like I want to be the best player in the world. And obviously I dream of that, but it's important to be realistic, and that with being realistic, that allows you to achieve these goals at a quicker rate and continue to grow and grow and grow. And that satisfaction of hitting those goals is huge, and can really get you to the highest level. Another one was leadership. I think this was the first time where I came into a leadership role, and in doing that, that grew me as a player on the field, but also as a person. And I think that made me more comfortable in a locker room setting, and speaking up, and not only leading by example, but leading through words, and motivating teammates. So I think advice that way for you guys is, if you feel like you can lead on the field, not necessarily as a player in the plays that you make, but also with motivating your teammates, and just ultimately being a great teammate. Take advantage of that, because those ultimately, I'll touch on this more later, but that's the type of person that these coaches in college recruit are. Natural leaders, people that are willing to lead, and will do anything to help the teammate out. So one to work on, if you're not a natural leader, that not as vocal, there's different ways you can lead, and that can be just through your actions. You can have there's my time being captain at the Hill, at Duke, each leadership group that I've been in, each individual was a different type of captain, and it's cool kind of seeing the way that each group leads and how it all kind of just meshes together and works. So
Hey,
um,
Dyson,
yeah,
if you can expand on that for a minute, we hammer these kids, whether it's as coaches, parents, teachers, all they hear is be a leader, from all different echoes, right? And it's never really followed up with how to do it. And
Mhm.
what I've typically seen with young adults is when they don't know how to be a leader, the default position tends to be the loudest or most critical one, with the biggest voice. Is the default position for leadership is to yell, be loud, be vocal, be rah rah, and that doesn't suit everybody's personality. And you've played with some pretty incredible people at Duke and presumably at the Hill. If you can take a second, just for the boys who have different kinds of personalities, we don't want them to think that the only visible sign of leadership is the rah rah loud, bang through the door kind of a leader. Give us a couple examples of what you've seen, if you will.
For sure. I can, I'll touch on three of us that were in my grade at Duke. And I'll go through Kenny Brower, Tyler Carpenter, and myself, and kind of show, each style. So right off the bat, Kenny Brower was exactly the type that you just mentioned. He was the rah rah. He's not afraid to kind of get in the guy's grill and say like, no, we do it this way, and be that like louder yelling kind of vocal leader. And in doing that, he was still positive, but that wasn't the type of like, kind of leader that I was. I didn't really want to just yell and scream. I think that when you have too many of those voices, it gets flushed out, and it's draining, and you don't really, then you lose that, you don't want to hear it at that point, right? It's too many voices like that. So I went with the approach of kind of being a hybrid of what Tyler and Kenny are. So Tyler was more of that quiet, just did the right thing every time. If you watch him in any drill and practice, he is just giving it 100% every single time, and he'll pick up the balls after practice, even though he's a senior. We're not leaving that for the younger guys, right? We're leading from the top, and being just a good teammate at the end of the day, doing the right things, cleaning up after guys, and running through every ground ball. I think the list can go on with things on the field and off the field on how you can lead if you're not a vocal leader, and those things don't go unnoticed, and that speaks to why Tyler was a captain for us. And even though he's not necessarily going to speak up, he's still a captain, and he represented the Duke lacrosse program in the right way, which is why he was the leader, even though he didn't speak up. And then I think the approach I took was more of a hybrid one, where I will talk and speak up, but I don't necessarily yell and be too rah rah. But if there needs to be something said about the way we're playing, or pick someone up when they're making a mistake, it's that kind of approach where you'll talk when it's necessary, and not just necessarily talking just to talk. And then also making sure I made it my duty that every single drill, and every time I'm on the field, I'm doing things the right way, just to show that for us at Duke, we were playing. I had 51 teammates, and that's a lot of guys, practicing together, playing together. And if one of your captains is not playing the right way in a Monday morning practice, then why would the new freshman that just got here 2 weeks ago, why would he do a drill right? So it's very important. Like, don't just, if you want to grow as a leader and be a leader, don't just worry about talking, and you can't just talk and then not do things right. So I think it's important to look at it that way, where there's many different ways you can lead and be a leader. So the way that our leadership group at Duke worked very smoothly, because we kind of had different those different styles all working hand in hand, which was great. So now kind of touching on recruiting here. My process was definitely a little different than what it was or what it is for you guys. I was still in the age of early recruiting.
Listen, give it another click,
Okay.
buddy.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I'm still on this. I'm still on this page.
Oh,
I'm going to move
I'm
on in one
sorry.
sec.
Excuse me.
All good. And for being in early recruiting, it was a little different because I was in ninth grade and getting contacted by coaches. So now like that, I'm very happy that that's kind of done now because I just feel like it was a little too early. It was definitely cool, but it was hard making a pretty big decision at such a young age. And now I think it's great that you guys, can get 2 years, 2 full years of high school in before a coach can even reach out to you. And because then you have those first 2 years to really grow and, figure out the type of player you are, the type of student you are, all these things. And before you can even consider like listening to what a coach has to say and, picture kind of where you want to go and where you want to commit. Um, in the next slide, I'll talk about kind of what's important to you, what is important to coaches. And one other thing I want to touch on is that commitment is just the beginning. So being verbally committed to a school is great. It was a big goal of mine coming to the Hill. I wanted to, by the end of my first year there, I wanted to establish kind of where I'm going to be, going to university. And thing is, obviously, it's great to kind of celebrate that achievement, but the road only gets harder once you commit because you have to maintain and improve. You might have to either improve your grades or maintain your grades throughout your time. You haven't actually signed anything, so being verbally committed is great, but if you don't hold your end of the bargain on still being a good person, being a great student, and progressing on the lacrosse field, then that can easily be taken away from you. So commitment being just the beginning is huge because it's a great step, but it should only make you work even harder because then the work just begins. You get that decision out of the way, but then it's time to really work to get to that level that you want to once you step foot on campus, wherever that is. All right, so deciding factors in recruiting from a player standpoint. Reason I have this map up here of member schools in the NCAA is just to show how many different places there are that you can end up. Every person, every lacrosse player, every student has a different, academic level, athletic level, lacrosse skill level, and there are just so many different homes for everyone that it's important when you're going through your checklist that don't necessarily just think like one thing is okay and one thing is great about this school but a few things aren't great, so I'm just going to go there just because of the one thing being great. For me, when I was getting recruited, I kept a journal of all the schools that I visited and had I kind of ranked what the school is like from a team culture standpoint, level of academics, kind of what degree am I going to end up with if I graduate from here? Is that can help set me up for success in my time after lacrosse and after school? How good they are at lacrosse, what the coaching staff was like, whether I would have if it seems like I'd have a great relationship with the coach, location of the school, size of the school, the social life, many more. There's different things you can look at, and I think it was important for me to take notes of these when visiting these schools and talking to these coaches because it helps you kind of get a real grasp for what each school is like, and then before you can make a this educated decision. At the end of the day, with all the glamour that there is in recruiting, it's a big decision to make, and it's one that you want to be proud about, kind of where you went to school. And at the end of the day, 30 years down the road, I'm going to be very proud to say that I was a Duke Blue Devil, and I'll be supporting them for the rest of my life. So it's important that no matter what it is, don't just go to the best lacrosse school that you can just because um, they were in the Final Four the year before. Maybe it's a better fit for you to, maybe academics is more important. Whoever, like what I mean by this is your checklist. Um, Rank it based off of what is most important to you. What is most important to Breck might not be as important to Anthony. So each individual has their own path that way, where you can work through what makes sense for you and in your decision making.
Dyson, could I ask you a
Yes,
quick question?
of course.
So as the players are looking at getting closer towards this college prospect opportunities, can you describe a little bit of the opportunities that are out there for them to actually go to a coach's sponsored opportunities on campus versus going to showcases? Is there any insight that you can give to the players on those different opportunities and what you see in a value for them to actually be in that process?
Yes. So I think those two different kind of events there that are um, both great and important, but very different, will provide different value. One, going to a showcase or going to um, uh, say, for instance, a Duke lacrosse prospect camp. Any showcase or camp like that, obviously gets you exposure to the coach's eyes. You get to, play and showcase your skills in front of these coaches. Um, and it provides value there, obviously, in the recruiting process, where maybe it gets your name on their recruiting list for when you can get recruited, or if you're already in that age range where you can get recruited, maybe it helps out. And I know there's a ton of different showcase events around the country that you can go to that do that, and obviously through Red Devil lacrosse, and also through just going on your own. There's different avenues that way for that. Then for coaches sponsored visits to campuses, you that's where for me I took the advantage of picturing myself at this place and figuring it out if I would want to go to this school. In the different schools that I visited, there were a few that were my last at the end of the day were where I wanted to decide between. And there were a few that, I maybe had a great relationship with the coach on the phone, but I got there and just didn't see myself there. So I think doing that and seeing the campus, meeting the coach in person, meeting some of the players potentially can get you really good insight onto what life would be like, for your 4 years in school. So two very different, but yet important kind of aspects of the recruiting process that I would not shy away from.
Great. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Of course. I think to move on here, can you guys see the coaches checklist here? Is that what this slide's on? Perfect.
Yeah.
Obviously it's one thing to have your own checklist, but if you have these schools on your radar that you want to go to, at the end of the day, it's very important that you understand what coaches look for. And I think that the importance here, number one, throughout the entire country, is who you are as a person. It doesn't matter if you're the best player, the number one ranked player on Inside Lacrosse. If you show up to campus and on a visit and you are disrespectful or cocky, arrogant, and you just don't aren't the type of person that the coach wants to be around for 4 years, then there's just zero chance that they're going to recruit you. For example, I'm not going to name names, but there was a high level recruit that visited Duke while I was there, and we did pursue him. And although it was would have been great to have his skill in the field, the guys on the team, we were honestly pretty happy that he did not decide to come to Duke and that the coaches didn't really pursue him, because at the end of the day, you don't want a bad apple coming in and ruining a culture. So it's very important that, your personality shines through and that are just at the end of the day a good person, because um, for the coaches, it's obvious that, that's their job, their livelihood, that they coach a lacrosse team. But at the end of the day, they're spending more time with you off the field in those 4 years than they are on the field. So that's without a doubt, no doubt, that's the most important thing. Um, Next things for sure in the classroom, your grades. Unfortunately, if you don't have a GPA that is high enough, there will be schools that just simply cannot even talk to you or even consider offering you a spot. So that doesn't mean, if you're someone that doesn't have a 4.0 GPA, you're not screwed. There are schools that, at different levels can recruit you, but it's just there are some that will not be able to if your grades aren't that high. So it's an understatement to say it would be an understatement to say that it is important to just do the best you can in the classroom. You can control that how hard you work in the classroom, and at the end of the day, if you set yourself up for success that way, it makes your life easier in recruiting, because there are more potential options for you at the end of the day. That doesn't mean that you have to go to the Princetons, the Harvards, and the highest academic institutions, but it just allows more coaches to talk to you and recruit you. And then obviously, your skills on the field, what you're like in the weight room, if you're showing growth that way, and what you do behind closed doors. Coaches will ask you questions about that, like what you do on your own time and stuff, and what your priorities are like. So everything I'm saying in these kind of preparation kind of techniques, and I'll touch on more of those as we move on. But these are things that coaches like to see, because they want, although they're recruiting you now, they're not necessarily going to actually be working with you for a couple of years. If you're committing to a school in 11th grade, there's still a full year and a half potentially before you actually step foot on campus. So it's important that they know that you're going to be doing the work and putting in something, and that you're not going to just be the same person the fall of your freshman year that you were the fall of your junior year in high school. And then another one that's big now that has continually just gotten more and more exposure is social media. It was, I think, probably in my kind of recruiting period that social media started to become a big thing in recruiting, because coaches can search players up on Instagram or Twitter and kind of see the type of things you're putting out there. It used to, back in the day, not be a thing. Now it's even more so. In 2025, it's obviously social media pretty much runs everyone's lives, and everyone is active on their phones. So what you're putting out there is so important. And, although, you want to, like I said before, it's important to balance your social life and hang out with your friends and do everything. Not everyone needs to see your social life. Keep your social media accounts what you would want, or what you'd be okay with a coach seeing at the end of the day, because every coach, every person has access to everyone's social media accounts, and it's important just to be mindful of that. That's definitely a big piece of advice I'd say, is just be careful with that and just be smart at the end of the day. And I don't think that I'm sure that I wouldn't even have to say that for you guys to already be doing that, but it's just an important reminder. I think that coaches are looking, whether you think that they are or not, they are looking. If they see your name on the recruiting sheet, that's probably one of the first places they're looking, because it's easy and accessible. All right, moving on here. Just a few more slides here, and then have time for more questions at the end. But Duke University, Duke was at the end of the day, for me, being recruited, it was the perfect fit for me, because it was a great balance of high level academics, high level athletics, a great social life, great location. for you guys, what North Carolina weather is all about. For me, as I mentioned before, growing up in Canada, cold winters, just snow, lots of snow. And not that I don't love the snow. Canada, I'm very proud to be Canadian and be raised in the snow and in the cold. But there's no doubt that I enjoyed, moving, a little farther south and getting some pretty nice weather all year round, which was awesome. Um, One thing about getting to your college years is it's kind of like a restart on what you're like as a freshman in high school, but even to an even bigger extent. For me, it was a wake up call when, when you're in ninth grade and you start practicing against 12th graders versus when you're in, your freshman year of college and all of a sudden you're playing against 22-year-old men. It's a big jump. So, who you are at the start of your college years and who you become at the end of it, it's crazy how different it is. So I mentioned before that, I gained probably, 50 pounds over the course of my time at high school, and I gained probably another 25 pounds in college. There's so much room for growth throughout those, 8 years of high school and college. And don't think that, where you are at the start will be where you are at the end. So if you kind of embrace the culture of your team and what your team is all about. At Duke, we were very big on, nutrition and going hard in the weight room and being a physically dominant team and embracing that helped, me now feel, fit in as a rookie in pro lacrosse because, I'm either bigger or the same size as a lot of the guys in these leagues that are, when you're going up against 30-year-olds and older, it's important that, you have the size and strength to kind of combat that. And then once again, leading by example, I touched on that before with like the type of captain I was. But that was something that I did continue to embrace there and has helped me, get to this, next level again because, just doing everything right. So for you guys in practices, I think focus on just doing the little things right. And, it can take you a long way. It might not feel like the most important thing at the time when, you're doing, a line drill at the start of practice or you're doing a ground ball drill and you're getting low and scooping through a ground ball. If you do that at 100%, it just shows that, you care about the little things. And if you do that on a day-to-day basis when you're practicing every day, it can really, help grow your game to a level that you wouldn't even imagine. And then a couple points of focus in my time at Duke. One was work ethic. Um, there was a high level of competition, obviously, in college lacrosse. There's for people that, for the guys that make it to the, NCAA level, you had to, grind through your high school career and, get recruited and go through all that. And once you get to college, it's now not only a high level competition with the teams you play against, but, you're joining a team of 50 different guys, potentially up to 10 guys at your position. And now you're battling for playing time on your own team with all these guys, right? So it's important that this work ethic and the way that you approach your day-to-day life that way enhances even more if you want to play and you want to perform and you want to be able to say that you're part of that team and grind and practice and not kind of get strained out of it. So work ethic is a big one, and then preparation through my game day routine. I'm a very superstitious guy, so I stick to my routine and like to feel prepared that way. Watching film, we would watch film as a team, a couple times a week, and on game days, and it helped us focus and obviously be as prepared as possible for our opponent and for your own game. Now in the pros and playing for Team Canada, for me it's great. I had this dream of playing pro, playing for Team Canada, so I'm soaking it in. But it's kind of a what now mentality. Now that I've made it to my highest goal, all the experience all the experiences I've had through youth lacrosse, through high school, through my time at Duke, all these different experiences come together. Everything I've learned, I now take and continue to, grow my game, grow my preparation throughout the week, and really try to continue to improve as much as I can. Staying hungry is important for me now, because I don't want it to just be, satisfying enough that I've made it here. I want to continue to keep going. So, for you guys, each level that you step up to, staying hungry is important if you want to continue to keep getting to the next level. And whether that's you're looking at that on the field, in the weight room, or in the classroom, it's continuing to improve and just trying to not be satisfied with where you're at. Keep being hungry and keep wanting more. And you can do that by sticking to the program. And for me, I found success in my growth each kind of level I've gone to. So I've followed the same kind of recipe each time I get to a new spot. For me, in my rookie year in the NLL, that was the biggest wake up call I had. Is like, this is the fastest lacrosse I've ever played in, the ball speed, the physicality. My first couple games, I struggled. It was not an easy transition. But progressively throughout the year, I started to learn, pick up on cues, pick up on, the game speed, and eventually, caught on the pace that I'd want to, and was hoping for. And so I think it's important to just continue to evolve, continue to learn, continue to grow, no matter, what level it's at, and that can take you far. Now, at the end of the day, how lacrosse has shaped me. Number one, this is not an easy task for me to kind of talk about myself for a while. I don't necessarily feel comfortable just talking about myself for this long. So staying humble and true to myself is very important. I love giving back to the lacrosse community. I love coaching camps, coaching clinics, coaching teams, doing calls like this. To me, like, this opportunity to be able to talk to you guys today is, makes my day. And knowing that if I'm helping you guys out in any way possible, that's what is important to me, because the lacrosse community has given me so much, and through all my times of adversity, losing my brother, and where I'm at now as a lacrosse player today, I feel like I just owe it to the lacrosse community to continue to give back. And for you guys, if you find satisfaction in giving back as well, whether that's coaching kids, try that stuff out. I started doing that at a young age, and it felt great, and it honestly makes you a better leader, better lacrosse player at the end of the day, because you start verbalizing kind of what you have to do as a player, and it only makes your skill set even better. So try that kind of stuff out, and don't be shy to do that. Yeah, another thing is not being defined by lacrosse alone is important to me. Just making sure, I've mentioned it multiple times throughout this talk, but who you are as a person is very important, and it's more important than every skill, every accolade, every stat that you have as a lacrosse player. Another thing, embracing failure. 2023 was was a year that was incredible, and I had a lot of opportunities, but also two of the toughest results of games I've ever been a part of were less than a month apart. The first one was D1 national championship, Duke versus Notre Dame. We go through a roller coaster of a game. We were down 6-1 going into halftime, and we tied the game in the fourth quarter and ended up losing the game by a couple goals. And that was the only time I ever got to the national championship. We got to the Final Four a couple times, but that was the only chance I had at winning a natty in my time at Duke. And then less than a month later, playing with Team Canada, we end up losing to Team USA. I lose to my head coach at Duke and my teammate Brendan O'Neill, and losing the gold medal game in the World Championship, a month apart. So two very tough losses, and ones that you dream about playing on that stage, and ultimately losing those were very tough. But fast forward a year later, in my rookie year in the PLL, got the opportunity to be a part of a PLL championship, and at the end of the day, am I still upset about losing those championships? Yes. And I, wish the script was a little different, but those losses made that win even sweeter. So it's being appreciative of the wins when you get them, because who knows, that could be at the end of my lacrosse career, that could be my only, pro lacrosse championship. And, I will ride with that. And it was amazing. So being happy with those wins is important. So every win you guys get, enjoy them, because no one likes to lose, but enjoy the wins when you can, and truly embrace that. And then, as I mentioned, just being hungry for more, keep chasing dreams, and keep leading will only help me continue my lacrosse career. With the news of lacrosse coming to the Olympics, my next kind of big goal is make it to the Olympics, win more championships, keep keep growing that way, and want to add to the resume from a team standpoint is kind of where my head's at and what I want. So that's kind of the last kind of way to wrap it up with me, on a more personal note, and kind of who I am. So we started off with a little background on me, and now that's kind of where I am now, and who I am today, as a lacrosse player. So now, nice little picture here for you guys, me and Anthony. But we can wrap it up here. Open up the floor to some more questions. Also, here's my email. You guys can take a picture of it or write it down. If you guys ever have any questions, need anything from me, do not hesitate to reach out. But yeah, would like to open the floor up to any more questions or comments, concerns at all. Do not be shy, though, fellas.
So Dyson, I will say a couple guys were just texting me some questions, and so just to kick it off, and players out there, please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask any questions. But there was one really good question. What does your average off-season day look like when you're not in season? Like you're training, do you do a balance of some, cardio and working out, with weights and then stick skills? Like what does that typically look like in the off season for you?
That's a great question. Yeah. Typically, it's off season is when I go a little bit harder in my training, because when you're in season, you obviously have to, maintain, your kind of strength and everything, but you still need your body to be feeling good. And playing with the way that our schedule is for in season, it's every weekend you play, you're really beat up come Sunday morning. So you got to take a couple of days of rest. So it's a lot different. So for the off
Right.
season, I'd say, whether it's I start with some shots. Usually I'll get a buddy of mine, and we'll shoot together, and we'll get after it that way. Make sure you get the heart rate up shooting, and so it's not only getting your stick dialed in, but also still getting a workout. One piece of advice for you guys is it's very easy when you go shoot on your own time to just kind of stand there and just shoot step down for an hour and be satisfied with that. But for me, I like to kind of split up my shooting sessions with realistic things that you'd see in a game. So not just step downs, but shooting on the run, hitches, getting down the alley, doing dummy dodges, and doing things that actually are relevant to the game, and not just worrying about stinging corners for an hour. Although that's a ton of fun, and it's a good way to know that your stick's dialed in. Making sure you're actually being purposeful with your shooting is my approach to that. And then get a lift in, and making sure to balance it with upper body, lower body, core throughout the week, and cardio as well. I like to go on more in the off season, go on more like long distance runs, and get the legs burning a bit more, and making sure that your cardio's at a high level, so that when you do get to time come training camp, that you're in the shape, because in season you don't need a lot of extra stuff to stay in the shape, because the game shape, you're playing hard and you're getting after it. So the off season is definitely a little different of a grind, but definitely that's when I get after it a lot harder. And then the in season is about more maintenance and keeping the stick dialed, and keeping the body dialed in shape, and doing maybe some more mobility, stretching, and that kind of closer to game day. Of
Great. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
course.
I
Anybody?
got a question. Yeah.
Hmm.
So if you could go back to high school, what would be like one or a couple things you do differently?
That's a great question. For me, I I'd say maybe embracing the weight room a bit more in high school would be something that I would do differently. I did enjoy the weight room, and I think that was where I started, working out for the first time and getting a feel for that. But I feel like when I got to school, I was behind the eight ball a bit from a strength perspective. Just because the jump from high school to college is so big. You go from, it's ultimately going from boys to men. And I think my freshman year, the fall could have been a little different if I came in a little, with a little bit more muscle. And I don't think it's necessarily, it's not the most important thing. And I think that's why I didn't, um, I don't regret it completely, but I think it just would have made life a little easier. So, um, I think at the end of the day, if you guys, enjoy the weight room, get after it, get big, like it helps you out, and make sure just, you're still balancing, everything out else as well, and not necessarily getting too big. I've seen it on some of my teams. There is such thing as being too big and being too strong. Lacrosse is a sport where you want to kind of balance that, and be strong, but you don't need to, be the strongest man in the world. But yeah.
I got a question. So
What's up,
in
buddy?
college, right? Like, what does it look like in season between like balancing practices and like schoolwork and stuff like that?
Great question. Yeah, busiest time for sure is in season in the spring in university. For us at Duke, we practice in the afternoon. Usually it was around 1:30 to 4 was our practice window. And we'd lift before that, a couple days a week. So basically it was class in the mornings. Sorry, my dog's barking. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but
Yeah.
uh it was class in the morning, and practice the afternoon, and it just meant that unfortunately, you're obviously absolutely gassed from the whole day of class, practice, and lifting. Um, but you get dinner with the boys, and then it was, it's time to, if you have homework, get it done, and get it away so you can actually hang out with the boys, watch some hockey, watch some football, whatever it is. So ultimately, at the end of the day, what I just described is like, if you have, say, two classes, that's probably worth about 2.5 to 3 hours of your morning. And then with lift and practice, that takes up probably 3 to 3.5 hours of your afternoon. So you're looking at around 5.5 to 6.5 hours out of your day right there. That's just being in class, and also being at the locker room for practice and for your workout. So if you look at what you have in a day, and you got to still balance a good sleep schedule, there's not much time, much free time. So time management is even more important in college than it is in high school, because you have even less time to get your stuff done and keep everything on track. So maintain that. And I think early on, I wish early on I adapted this strategy, but I ended up I utilize a calendar a lot more, started my sophomore junior year. And that helped me a lot, kind of balance all my assignments that I had and keep it on track, because it's very easy to, forget about an essay that you have due. And all of a sudden you're playing Syracuse on Saturday, you have a paper due Friday. You should not be, I like to then plan ahead, have that paper done on Wednesday so that I can actually focus on Syracuse, which I would rather focus on Thursday and Friday and not type in a paper the night before a big ACC matchup. So that's kind of an outlook for a day in the life in season. Definitely busy, but lots of fun.
I had a question. I was wondering if you ever got burnt out from lacrosse.
That's a great question. For me, I did not. I've never gotten burnout from lacrosse. I think I truly enjoy and love the sport so much, and whatever season I'm in, I enjoy it. Whether it's field or box, I love it. But I will say that when I do get to the off season, I'm ready to relax a little bit. It's obviously it's a physical burden. Lacrosse is I think it's the toughest sport to play in because it's you're putting your body on the line at the end of the day, just like you do in football, and it's one that you deserve your rest at the end of the season. But no, I don't think I've ever gotten burnout. I'd like to think I'm a lax rat and just love soaking in. Even in the off season, I continue to just watch lacrosse all the time and stuff. So if you do experience that if you are experiencing that burnout right now, that's why I think it's so important to be a multi-sport athlete and continue to do so through high school. Obviously, once you get to college, if you do want to, be a college athlete, you typically, there's a rare few that do play maybe a sport in the fall and a sport in the spring. It's probably 99.9% of, athletes in the NCAA play one sport only. And so that's the time to specialize, but enjoy that time where you get to play different sports in high school. And then that will help, you make your decision come recruiting time, that what do you want to pursue, and do you feel like you can do that if you want to do that for 4 years in college. Great question.
Hey, Dyson, quick question on scheduling, or at least exposure. Given the competitive level that the boys are playing, if we wanted to, as parents, we could be taking these kids to a showcase or a camp 52 weeks of the year. So what's your opinion on summer camps or showcases or just general exposure for the boys beyond the tournaments they're already playing in?
So I think that it's important to, obviously look at opportunities. I would highly recommend do not schedule something every single week, every single weekend. There's just no need to burn yourself out that way, because at the end of the day, there are at these tournaments you guys are playing, and there are already a bunch of eyes. I think if you look at the schedule of those kind of prospect camps and events like that and showcases to go to, circle a couple that you really want to go to, and you see some schools on there that you really want them to play in front of. Make those kind of the ones that you focus on and are important, and do those. If you do too many of them, ends up kind of being, one, very repetitive, and two, you don't want it just to start feeling like too much, where you want, like, the special ones that you really want to grind at be, your Super Bowl. That's your Super Bowl at that time. You want to perform at the highest level at that one and be happy with that. So I think it's important to go to a few for sure, but you don't need to load up and go to every single one. It's just too much at the end of the day, I think. And that's a lot of the parents too.
Dyson, this is a dad. I was just wondering what it was like for you as a player going from one team to the next, trying to fit into a new team. You've obviously played for multiple colleges as well as pro teams. What's it like making that transition from one team to the next and fitting in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, I've gotten a lot more comfortable like transitioning with that as I've gotten older. It's not an easy thing, right? Meeting, 40, 50 guys going into a new school, and all of a sudden these are guys that you're going to be seeing every single day for the next 4 years. It's what I've gathered from it and doing it is just, one, being myself right from the get-go. don't pretend to be someone that you're not just to fit in or whatever it is. You know, every team you're going to have, differing personalities, and that's what the beauty of, team sports is. You have different voices, you got different personalities, you got the funny guys, you got the quiet guys, you got it's a mix of different personalities, and being yourself one is very important because you at the end of the day, I think the lacrosse culture is great, and where we have such diverse backgrounds on teams that everyone comes from everyone has a different story, and if you're on a team that's very accepting and welcoming, is just be yourself, is people will appreciate that, and it doesn't take long to kind of get to know everyone that way. And another thing is just embracing, if you do feel like you like the team, and feel like you fit in, and you want to fit in, embrace the culture and the way they go about it. We at Duke, we had set standards that we had to follow, and it's the job of the upperclassmen that have been there for 3 to 4 years, that show the freshmen coming in how to go about it, and what to do. And I think for me, going to Duke was like, that was the biggest jump, was obviously going from high school to, especially going to a new country, to, somewhere I've, living away from home for the first time is different, and is not easy. And embracing kind of the way that, Duke lacrosse went about things helped me, fit in, and feel welcomed right from the get-go. But that's a great question. Any others? These are all great questions.
Hey Dyson, this is Coach Travis, and outside of playing lacrosse in college, can you talk a little bit about the enjoyment of the team, the brotherhood, the travel days, kind of, the other memories minus on the field and the practices and stuff, just kind of the other part of it that's there when you go to college.
That's a great question. I obviously am very happy with the way my lacrosse career has gone for on the field reasons, but I've always said, and will always say for the rest of my life, that my favorite place on earth is the locker room. And I think the locker room is such a sacred place. You get all your best friends in there, and when you're in college, you're spending practicing Monday to Friday, game on Saturday. Like, you're in the locker room 6 days a week, guaranteed. And it's just some of my, most fun memories are, being in the locker room, getting ready for a practice, getting ready for a game or a post game. And, being on the road, like you said, bus trips, flights across the country to go play a cool team, being in a hotel, getting to know new guys. One thing at Duke that I thought Coach Nowski did well was, mixing up roommates on the road. And so you get to know like guys, and you go eat with guys that maybe you don't typically throughout the week at school. And I think those are ultimately some of my, like, the reasons why I'm still in touch with so many guys from Duke at the end of the day. And I'm very fortunate to have gone to Duke for lacrosse. But I'm even more fortunate that, I'm going to have relationships from Duke for the rest of my life. And that's the kind of thing at the end of the day that was very important to me on my list in recruiting, was, what culture am I going into? So that, at the end of the day, you just get to enjoy your 4 years truthfully, and not look back that way. But that's probably as much as I should say. I'm not going to, can't get into too much detail on college. You guys said a couple years before that, but there's fun to be had.
I got one. By playing lacrosse at high level, and learning the things you do through a team sport, how has that prepared you to go into the real world outside of lacrosse?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've actually, talked to Tony a couple times about this, but it's I think that being an athlete and playing a sport on a team is best way to, set yourself up for success in your life. The way a sports team runs is the same way that businesses are run and companies are run, and um, everything you do, and in your personal life, like having a family, it's everything is a team, and if you want to be a team player, on the field, you got you should also want to be a team player off the field. And I think for me, where I want to be, I want to be one, productive with my life, and do things. And I don't want to just be known as a lacrosse player. So it's important that, taking, the times of adversity throughout my life, the lessons I've learned on the lacrosse field, in the locker room from Coach Janowski at Duke, and, taking that and embracing it, and ultimately kind of helping shape what I do from a day-to-day life is important to me. And I think that it's weird to think that running through a ground ball on a Tuesday morning in October, as hard as you can, ultimately, like, I think it mirrors the way that that I will, in 20 years down the line, wake up on a Tuesday and get my tasks done the right way, just because, it's the little things, like I mentioned before, that are so important, that can, help, separate you from other people, in the workforce. And I think that we're at an advantage, being, athletes, because one, you already have that competitive edge, and two, you can kind of take that, the things that you learn in a team setting, and use them to your advantage.
Well, Dyson, I thank you so much. I will say, as we kind of wrap up the call, and I don't think it's a surprise to anybody, your competitiveness. Loved hearing about your work ethic, how you push yourself. You're obviously playing at the highest level of the game in the world, and it's just so great to hear. But I will tell you, I think what's more important, and that I've really learned about you on this call, is your compassion. And if there's anything a lot of you guys could walk away from, is you can be competitive and compassionate. And when I hear Dyson talking about his family, honoring his brother, honoring his teammates, giving back like he is tonight, guys, I hope this is something that transcends this call, that this is more than lacrosse. And what Dyson has done tonight has, I hope, has helped you guys. But honestly, I've learned a lot by listening to you tonight, Dyson. So I truly, truly appreciate the time that you've taken to not only prepare for this call, but taking time out of your evening to share with the team, because I know many, many of us are going to walk away from this a better person because of this. So I truly, truly appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. It means a lot. And yeah, that means a lot. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, Dyson, thank you again. We're all going to be cheering for you at every level, even if you're playing for Canada. We might actually be buying some Canadian jerseys with the number 51. I
There we
have a
go.
feeling we're going to be doing that. So we
Let's
appreciate your
go.
time. Thank you for everything. And certainly we'll be keeping in touch. And we truly appreciate you also sharing your email. That means a lot to us.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Anytime, boys. Seriously, reach out. If you ever have any questions, don't hesitate. This isn't a one-off here. It's a ongoing relationship. You guys got me.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dyson.
All right,
Thank you,
kiddo.
guys.
Thanks, Dyson.
Appreciate it. Of course. Have a good one. Go Jays,
All
go.
right. Yeah.
Let's go.